In the winter of 1959, 10 hikers set out on a 200-mile trek through the freezing Ural Mountains. These were veteran mountaineers attempting a Grade 3 certification, the most difficult designation available in the Soviet Union. Weeks after the group failed to return, search parties found 9 bodies scattered across the slopes of Kholat Syakh. The evidence was baffling. Nearly all the hikers were missing their shoes, and many were found partially undressed despite sub-zero temperatures. While 6 had perished from hypothermia, 3 others died from brutal internal trauma, including a shattered skull and massive rib fractures. The hiker's tent had been slashed open from the inside, but the tracks leading away from it offered no sign of a struggle. 9 sets of footprints, some left by bare feet, showed the group walking voluntarily away from their only shelter and into the darkness. The slashed canvas and the bare feet tracks birthed a 60-year mystery. But the trail of evidence that began on the freezing mountain eventually leads away from the snow and into the office of the regional prosecutor. Lead investigator Lev Ivanov presided over an increasingly strange official record. Despite the autopsy reports, he concluded the hikers died from an unknown compelling force, and he privately focused the investigation on reports of glowing fire orbs seen in the sky by local witnesses. Decades later, Ivanov revealed a stunning breach of forensic protocol. In a 1991 letter, he admitted that he had taken the hikers' clothing, garments that were cut and shredded during their final hours, and burned them in a fire, claiming they provided no useful information to the case. By destroying those garments, Ivanov eliminated the physical record of the hikers' final movements. The investigation was left without its primary map of the tragedy, replaced instead by the investigators' own fire. For years, the slope of Kholat Syakh was considered too shallow to avalanche, but recent computer modeling proved that cutting into the slope to pitch their tent inadvertently triggered a delayed slab avalanche. In the middle of the night, the snowpack finally fractured and collapsed, pinning the group under a heavy slab of snow, forcing them to slice through the tent wall to survive. Panicked and facing a worsening winter storm, they fled toward the tree line. They left their boots and heavy coats behind in the crushed tent, beginning a mile-long descent in -20-degree temperatures, wearing little more than their sleepwear. As the hikers reached the limit of their endurance, they entered the final stages of severe hypothermia. When the body cannot restrict blood flow, peripheral vessels suddenly dilate, sending warm blood to the skin's surface. This tricks the brain into sensing intense heat. In biological delirium, victims strip off clothes to cool down, even as core temperatures plummet. This biological failure explains the condition of the first 2 victims discovered under a large cedar tree. They were found in their underwear with a small, dying fire nearby, having succumbed to a predictable medical response to extreme cold. What appeared to searchers like madness or a mysterious attack was actually the tragic conclusion of the human body's final defense mechanism against the frost. The survivors faced a horrific choice. To stay alive, they used a knife to scavenge clothing from their friends, cutting away sweaters and trousers to wrap around their freezing limbs. Seeking shelter from the wind, 4 of the hikers moved into a nearby ravine. As they stood over a hollow in the creek bed, the thick snow bridge beneath them caved in. They fell into the ravine, and the weight of the collapsing snow bridge inflicted the crushing rib and skull fractures discovered during their autopsies. This sequence of events accounts for every bizarre detail found at the site. Yet, back in his office, Lev Ivanov systematically falsified the record, omitting the scavenged, mismatched clothes from the official inventory to hide the reality of the hikers' desperate fight for survival. He stood by an official record that claimed no external injuries were present, even as forensic pathologists documented internal trauma so severe it resembled the force of a high-speed car crash. The shredded, scavenged clothes told a clear story of survival and catastrophe. By burning them, Ivanov ensured that the true sequence of the hikers' final hours would be replaced by a permanent mystery. Ivanov's destruction of the physical evidence and his vague ruling of an unknown compelling force created an intentional vacuum. He effectively classified the investigation, preventing the truth from reaching the victims' families. That vacuum was immediately filled by decades of conspiracy theories. The absence of a logical official explanation fueled rumors of top-secret weapons tests, alien abductions, and military executions that have persisted for over half a century. Ivanov's fire burned the bridge between an explainable natural disaster and the public. His cover-up transformed a tragic mountaineering accident into a permanent piece of national folklore. The real tragedy of the Dyatlov Group was a lethal combination of a delayed slab avalanche and the gruesome, delirious reality of late-stage hypothermia. However, one piece of the expedition survived the cover-up and the mountain entirely untouched, because it never reached the slopes of Cholatsiach. Yuri Yudin, the 10th member of the group, was forced to turn back early due to a sudden illness. He spent the next 50 years haunted by his survival, often returning to the cemetery to mourn the friends he had unknowingly left to their deaths. Because of the fire and the cover-up, the only pristine artifact remaining from the group is a small stuffed teddy bear, a parting gift given to Yudin by Ludmila Dubinina just days before she died in the snow.